Hi there, welcome to 380 Business Software Solutions introduction video. This is Prakash Kumar from Datarium Softwares. In this video, we would be covering the following topics. Look at the high-level overview of 380 and then we'll jump into the demo session where we'll see the company creation, we'll look into the master creation, we'll cover some of the commercial documents, we'll look into the accounting and reporting section. The features of 380 could be categorized into these four buckets. In commercial documents, we have some further subclassifications like sales, which supports Proforma, DC. We have two types of invoicing system called invoice and bazaar. In purchase, we support purchase order, we support purchase invoice. We have different types of vouchers supported in our 380 where you can make a payment and receipt against bank, cash or party. You could also raise a debit note or credit note, the generic information, or could also add items which would be helpful when we make purchase returns or when we receive sales returns. In inventory management system, we support multiple warehouse. Stocks could be maintained independently, or we could kind of integrate the stock against the commercial documents like purchase invoice, sales invoice, and we have some additional provision like rack details which would be added along with the warehouse field. So whenever we issue any items, we would be able to see the items first in a chronological order. So you could issue the item which are old first, and along with that you could also see the rack information of the warehouse where they are stored. So this is another interesting thing in our inventory management system. In accounting, we have ledgers where you could see all the transactions being performed. For banks, we have a dedicated interface where you could see them in the traditional way or could see the bank transactions in a passbook format. We also have some interesting concept called tally, where you could map your debits and credit transactions with a tally number to get a better clarity. For example, you buy something with the bill number and you make some payments and you have some partial payments, or you make multiple payments for that specific invoice as happens to be a bigger value, and for this invoice there could be some returns or there could be some discounts also you will be receiving. So these transactions could be mapped with a tally number, and when you look at the transaction details after 6 or 7 months, you would be in a position to tell how you have settled the payment for that specific bill number. In accounting, we also have journals where you could post direct entries between accounts, so it is quite versatile. Our reporting engine supports reports for commercial documents, inventory management system, and accountings. We also have a dedicated report which could be used for GST returns. So you could use this report whenever you file your returns. All the reports when are being generated could be exported in Excel, PDF and Word format. Our reports are quite flexible and versatile. You could kind of customize the reports, like what columns you want, what column width you want. So those things is possible in our reporting engine. Now we move on to the demo section. To start the application, we need to double click on the 3D icon which gets installed on a desktop, and once we do that, you'll see this flash screen which will highlight the type of version you're using and also mention our contact details. And once the flash which gets switched off automatically, you will be taken to the login screen. Here you need to enter the user ID and password, and once you're authorized, you will be taken to the company gateway where you need to select the company which you want to open and then select the open button. And you would be navigated to the home screen of our application. On the title bar, you will see the name of the company, and we have a menu bar where you could kind of navigate to the appropriate modules through them. They have been arranged in alphabetical order. So so you could easily categorize where actually you want to jump to. So we'll start with the company, and to that we'll start with the company creation. And for this, we need to click on the new menu option here. Below that you have open, close and delete, which has very minimal control, and will not be including this in our demo. So when a new button is clicked, you'll see this form. Here you need to select the company name. You can set the financial period. You could kind of also define what type of system you want to maintain in this company. Accounts, you want to maintain instruments like invoicing, bazaar and stuff like that. And how you want to maintain the inventory. You want it to be integrated with the instruments. You want to maintain it independently. And you could also include the company's master's balance from other companies. That is, if you want to migrate all the masters of items and assets along with the balances, then you can use this feature, which would be useful whenever we migrate from one financial period to another financial period. Once you're done with the selection, you need to click on the create button and the company will get created. Now we move on to the master creation. In master creation in 380, we are categorizing the masters into accounts and items. So in accounts, you'd be able to see them through the ledger and bank passbook. So we'll start with the customer creation. So when you click on the customer, we will be seeing this form, and here you could see some asterisk symbol against some of the fields. So those fields are mandatory fields, and the remaining fields, if you see, are related to the company and some contact details. And in this grid, you could also enter other contact details of that specific company. There are certain organizations, they have a lot of departments and there are a lot of point of contacts there, so those informations could be contact here. So we move on to the next master, which is tax template. This is quite a simple one. Here you could define the tax name and define the tax rate here. You can create as many tax templates here. They need to be unique. So in account, we'll just be covering two masters, and we move on to item. Items has these types of masters, and the first two, the category groups, are basically going to help us to classify the items, which will help us in reporting. And HSN, which happens to be one of the important component of GST. You can define your own HSN and map appropriate tax rate to it. Items, you could kind of define an item name, define a unique item code for it, and fill the other fields like the HSN code, units, groups, purchase rate, selling rate. Some of the fields would be populated whenever you select the items in the commercial documents. Then we move on to the next template, which is party's alternative name. So this is one of the powerful feature of 380. Here you could define an alias name for an item. So in this screen, we have defined item 1's alias as item 1 of supplier 1 for supplier 1 party. So likewise, you can define a different name for customers, because those customers or those parties would like their our item to be referred with their code. So this interface will help us to configure those details and remove ambiguity in item master. So usually what business folks do is they'll create multiple item master because they have been referred with that name, and that in turn will create a lot of ambiguity, because when you buy things, it will be in a different name. When you sell things, it will be in a different name. So there will be a lot of confusion. This interface basically helps us to eliminate that confusion. Now we move on to the commercial documents, and we'll start with the purchase books. In purchase books, we support purchase order and purchase invoice. When you select the order menu option, you'll be shown this form. So this is a look and feel of a purchase order. To create a new order, you need to click on the new button. And if you want to modify or cancel in specific order, first you need to navigate to that specific purchase order and then click on modify or cancel button. So we are going to create a new one, so we click the new button and it will be renamed as save, so that you could save the information, and you would have noticed that all the fields would have been enabled. So we'll go to the supplier, we'll select the appropriate customer, and if you see in this drop down, you will be able to see all the customers and all the suppliers, so you could buy also from your customers, and against that you could see the outstanding balance for that specific party. Once you select that, you would see the remaining fields getting populated from the master, like state, GST, and party phone are basically coming from their master. To add a new item, we need to click on the add button. When we do that, you'll see this wizard popping up. You could kind of search an item against the name or code, and once we select an item, you'll see the corresponding alias name being shown here, and this will be used in the printout. Okay, and if you want to enter any additional instructions or any additional information which is related to the item, which varies from business to business, could enter here. And whenever we select the item name, you will see the HSN code, the units, rates, and tax type would get populated automatically. However, these fields could always be overridden, and when we enter the quantity information, you will see these blocks getting calculated automatically. Once you're done with the item selection, we need to click on the OK button, which will add that specific item to the grid. In this order, we're just going to raise one item. So I'm going to click on the total button, which will kind of navigate me to the summary tab. Here I'll be able to see the summary of the specific order. And if I want to add any expense like sundry expense, and there's going to be no tax for it, so you can use these two drop downs. If I want to add some additional instruction or additional notes, like how you want it to be shipped and stuff like that, those information could be recorded in this remarks section. And once we are done with this, you can save your purchase order. So that was a purchase order. We move on to purchase invoice. The purchase invoice is something similar to purchase order with some additional fields here to capture the invoice number, invoice date, and the type of purchase invoice being supported. We have some additional fields in our add wizard, so you could kind of capture the warehouse and rack details in this add wizard. So that was purchase invoice. So as we select an item, you could also select charges we have been made by a supplier. We are paying to a supplier, like for packaging and forwarding. So if there are going to be charges made by a supplier and there would be a tax tied to it, so those things could also be captured here, just like we do an item. So once we are done with our items and charges, we could click on the total button. You'll be seeing a summary, and then you can click on the save to save the purchase invoice. So this was with our purchase invoice. We move on to the sales book. The sales book covers the following areas like proforma, DC, invoice, and bazaar bill. We'll start with the proforma. The proforma has similar look and feel as that of purchase order. The only difference is against the print we have a checkbox. So when you select this add signature checkbox, your signature would get added. So we'll see how the print has been generated. So when you click on the print, you'll see this form being rendered, and this section basically is been pulled from the proforma setup, and this section basically changes whenever you select the add signature or you uncheck that signature. So when you select the add signature, your signature would be shown here. Okay, for this also need to be configured in a proforma setup. Another interesting thing which we have here is you have a prefix and postfix being injected into the unique number which is of the proforma. So 1002 is the unique number for this proforma, and we have prefix with pro and postfix with minus 2089. So this also is coming from the configuration. So we move on to the setup of Proforma. To open that, you need to go to setup and Proforma. Likewise, Proforma, we have a support for DC, invoice and bazaar bill. So when you select the Proforma option, you'll see this form loaded, and here you could kind of configure the company name. You could kind of define the prefix and postfix of the Proforma. So we have this facility. You can also set the margin which need to be given when you give a printout. You could also predefine the notes which need to be populated whenever you raise a new Proforma. So those could be configured here. In others tab, we have a provision to show GST rate item wise, so you could show them in summary, or you can select both if you want to be shown in the both places. You could configure the left image and right image. So we have a provision to show your icons or brand names or stuff like that in the header. So those could be configured here. And if you want to generate the reports, that is, you want to kind of raise the Proforma in plain black sheet. You will kind of add a plain blank sheet to your printer, and the company name, everything should be printed in it. Then you need to select this option. Or if you want to print the Proforma in your pre-printed letter pad, then you can use this without header option. So the company details and stuff like that will not be generated. If you want to change the title of the Proforma, like if you want to change it to estimate or quotation, then you can update this field. And suppose you are using a different page size and you want to configure how many rows need to be printed in a page, so you could kind of use this section. So page rows limits could be defined here. In bottom of every page you will see authorized signature is being shown. So if you want to change that, you could kind of add appropriate image here. And when you select the auth's add signature checkbox, so you could kind of capture a signature and include that through this configuration, auth signature image. So once you're done with this configuration, you need to save it for it to be in action. Now we move on to delivery challan. The delivery challan has a similar look and feel as that of Proforma. Usually we raise a delivery challan when the items has to be shipped to factory, which is in a separate location, and invoice has to be sent to the head office, which is in a separate location. So we use delivery challan for that. So we are not going to go into this. We'll move on to the invoice. An invoice is also similar to other modules with some additional fields here. You can capture the DC number, DC date. You can capture your LR number, LR date. You could also define whether the invoice is raised for CES companies. There are some additional fields been added to the add wizard. So when you click on that, you will see the existing fields and grids with an additional field here. Here you're going to see the items in a chronological way, and you'll also be able to see the warehouse information, the rack details. Okay, so once we are done, so once you have selected the appropriate items, you can click on OK. So, and whenever you enter a quantity here, it selects the items in a chronological way. But if you want to override that, you can override that by selecting the appropriate checkbox, unchecking the pre-selected checkbox with some other checkbox. So that's possible here. So this was with our invoice. Now we move on. In vouchers, we have these options. So you could raise journals, you could raise debit notes and credit notes, raise payments and receipts, and we also have a provision to set up the debit and credit notes through setup option. We'll not be covering the vouchers in this demo, so we move on to accounts. Accounts, we have transactions and final account. All the transactions being carried out against the accounts could be seen in these two options. So for bank, we need to use this bank passbook, and for other accounts, we need to use the ledger option. So when we select the ledger option, we'll be taken to the account gateway. You need to select the account name here, from the drop down, or could drill down through this tree view and then select the open button. So once we do that, you'll see this interface loaded, and this is a traditional way of recording debit and credit transactions. So if you see, some transactions are being shown in cyan color and some are shown in the white color. The cyan colors are tallied transactions and the white are yet to be tallied. If you want to perform any filtering, then you can use this filter options. You could also use, you can filter by account, you can filter by the date range, and we could tally the transactions by selecting the debit and credit transactions. And once if the debit total matches the credit total, you'll be able to add a tally number to them. If you want to see the transaction chronological view, you need to select the chronological radio button and you would be able to see the transactions in this format. So this was a ledger book. We move on to the bank passbook. So when you select the bank passbook, you'll again be able to select the bank you want to look at. So once you select the bank account, you need to click on the open button and the bank passbook interface gets loaded. This is similar to the ledger. The only difference is we have a different name for debit and credit. Here we referring as deposits and withdrawal, which matches the type of transaction we perform against a bank. We also have a view bank format, bank passbook format view. So when you click on the chronological order, you'll be able to see that in the bank passbook format. So you could kind of use the appropriate format to perform your reconcile statement. So this was a bank passbook. Move on to the final account. In final account, we support trial balance, trading and profit and loss account, and you can generate balance sheet. This is a standard way of generating it. So we're going to skip this in our demo and we move on to stock. In stock, even you maintain it as an independent mode, so you could use the receipts and issues module to capture the input receipts, and whenever you issue an item you can use the issue module. The opening stock could be used whenever you are opening a new company and want to migrate all the opening stock into the system, then you can use this option. So we are not going to cover this in this demo, so we're going to skip this and move on to report section. So reports covers the following headings. So we cover purchase, sales, stock, transactions and vouchers. We have a dedicated report for GST. So we'll have a look at that. So you could kind of generate a report for a specific date range and click on generate button, which in turn populate these three tabs. The first tab, summary, will show us the list of purchases, sales, debit notes and credit notes raised in that specific period. It will be a summary of it. And then for details, you need to click on the detail tab. Here you will be able to see the purchase and sales raised in that specific period, along with the invoice number and the customer names. And in the notes, you'll be able to see the debit notes and credit notes along with the notes type and the note number. Yep. So this was GST returns. We'll look into another report in stock, which is receipts and issues. We have filter options here. One could make use of them. So I've used item 1 here, and then I click on generate, which will generate this report. Or when you don't have any filter option being mentioned and then click on generate, then it will generate report for all the items. Okay, and suppose if I want to configure the columns width, and if I want to skip certain columns from printing, you could configure that through a configure button. So once you do that, you would see this wizard, and in this wizard you could kind of select the list of columns which you want to be included in the report. You can provide the width of the column, you can set the alignment, you could set the sequence of the columns, which column should come first, second, and so on through this up and down arrow. You could also mention the paper size. We have 4 pages mentioned for reference, so you could use that here and generate a report accordingly. Once you have set the columns, you could save this settings, and when you click the print, the settings would be picked. So when a print is clicked, the report gets rendered like this. One could click on printer icon to take a printout of it, or could save this report in Excel, PDF, or Word format. We have this format, this interface for all the print options in 3D, and you could kind of utilize this export facility and generate in PDF, Excel, or Word. With this, we have come to end of our presentation. If you have any questions, queries, or you want to try a trial version, you want us to customize the software to match your unique requirement, you can contact us at prakashpengore@gmail.com or reach us at this number or WhatsApp this number. Thank you for watching this video.